Hi, my name is Jill Gilliamball. I am an early childhood mental health consultant at the Children's Resource Center, and I wanted to take a few moments today to talk a little bit about death and dying and grief and loss and everything caregivers maybe need to know about working with preschool age children who are experiencing some sort of grief and loss in their lives. So, when we're talking about how to explain death to our preschool age children and what to do, there are some things that we need to know. We need to be mindful that if we can help them understand, in the best way possible at their age, they are going to cope better. We should be gentle, but use simple and clear words. We always want to be honest. Definitely want to avoid those euphemisms, those things that we hear like he went to sleep or she passed away or they're in a better place. All of those things are very confusing for young children. Children are very literal. So when we say something like he went to sleep, they're envisioning someone laying in a bed sleeping. And that can cause a lot of confusion and also kind of that lack of safety and maybe some increased anxiety for kids. You could just say something like, I have sad news, this person died. It's very short and very honest. And then also taking cues from our children. So we want to make sure that we're not oversharing. We don't at the ages of 3 to 5. That's generally what we're talking about when we're talking about preschool age children. They don't need to know a lot of details. So just kind of taking cues from them on what they know, what they understand, and what they need to know, and kind of going from there. And a simple way to kind of explain what death is to a child, saying something like when a person dies, their body stops moving, their body no longer, it's not working anymore. They don't need to eat or drink. They don't breathe. Those are all very simple, concrete ways to explain what death is. So, what does a preschooler understand? I think we have to recognize that our preschool age children are going to have a hard time understanding death. Developmentally, they have a very limited concept of time. They believe oftentimes that death is reversible. So you may have had many, many conversations and answered many questions from your preschool age child. And then they may say something like, well, when I see this person, you know, at Christmas, or, something like that, that kind of catches you off guard. Recognizing that that's kind of developmentally appropriate for their age. And what we can do about that is just be very patient. They're going to repeat a lot of questions, and we're going to have to continue to repeat ourselves when we're answering, but giving that same simple, honest, gentle answer is, very important. Be honest, but don't overshare. So saying something like there was an accident, this person died, or this person was very sick. The doctors did all they could to try to help, but she died. And then going into what that means, the explanation of death that we just talked about. All right. So we recognize that our young children are very magical thinkers. Their minds are just always wondering and creative. And so there's kind of some things that oftentimes is going through their brains, but they're not always able to verbalize or maybe don't. So kind of those 3 C's to look out for with our kids is recognizing that a thought that often goes through their mind is, did I cause it? And when it comes to that magical thinking aspect of it, it's things like, I didn't play with her, or I told her no, or I didn't go to her house when she asked me to. Is it my fault? Did something I do cause this to happen? The next one is it contagious or can I catch it? Death has a way of feeling all of us, no matter, or making us all feel, no matter what our age is, pretty vulnerable. And children are no different. But the thing with kids is they're also very egocentric. So they're very focused on themselves at this age. So, just kind of thinking things like, will I die too? Is this going to happen to me also? And then the last one is, who's going to take care of me? So, along with that vulnerability and similar to wondering if they may die, they may question if their loved ones are going to die as well. Is mom going to be okay? What if something happens to dad or grandma or whoever it may be that's close to them? And then along with that, if they do die, who's going to take care of me? So, and that goes back to that egocentric that we talked about, very kind of self-focused at this age, and recognizing that they need to know who's going to take care of them if something happens to their caregivers. So, what we can do about these things and how we can help is just always making sure children know, that nothing they did cause this to happen, reassuring them about measures you have in place to keep everyone, including themselves and you as the primary caregiver, healthy and safe in your family. So things like this is, we're going to buckle up our seatbelts or get in our car seats, or this is, we are going to stay safe by holding hands when we cross the road and looking both ways, those sorts of things. And then just reminding children that they have many adults that care about them and love them. We can't make promises that we can't keep. And that's kind of a vulnerable thing for us. But recognizing, and reassuring them that we have measures in place, again, to stay safe, but also to stay healthy. I'm doing everything I can to take care of my body and to stay safe and healthy. With grief, recognizing that, grief is a process and all children are going to react and grieve differently, just as we do as adults, and that's okay. Um, Children, the thing to know about them is they grieve in small doses. So they seem like they're going to turn their grief on and off pretty quickly. And that's how they're able to cope in a healthy way, and that's okay. But it can catch us off guard if we don't recognize or we don't really realize that. Because oftentimes kids are playing and completely fine, and then the next thing you know, they're maybe crying in the corner, or very angry or very upset. And then we kind of have to get to the bottom of things, and it can kind of throw us off guard a little bit as adults. Or you may be having a really serious conversation with your child about your loved one, and the next thing you know, they're like, okay, mommy, can I go play? And they're bouncing off and, seem really excited and happy. So if we don't really know that that's fairly typical for children and how they cope, it can definitely catch us off guard, and we kind of wonder. So that is a typical response. Some behavior changes or things that you might see in your child when someone close to them has died: clinging to adults, that increased fear of separation, not wanting to leave parents or caregivers. Regression is not uncommon. Bedwetting is the example on here, but even just kind of some toilet training setbacks and things like that. Decreased verbalizations kind of goes along with that regression. Sometimes kids, it seems like maybe they're using baby talk, or just not using as many words or as clear as they had been. And then also difficulty sleeping. So you may be wondering, how do I answer all of their questions? Because we all know that preschoolers are so inquisitive and they have a million questions on a daily basis about anything. They're trying to figure out how the world works. And it's really important to recognize that it's okay if you don't have all the answers. We're all kind of searching for our own meaning and trying to make sense of something that really it doesn't make sense to us. So, just saying something like, I wonder about that too, can be really helpful. All right. So, ways that you can help your child kind of grieve in a healthy way and move through that grief process is just listening to and comforting them, validating their feelings, recognizing it's okay to be happy right now or excited about your birthday that's coming up. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be anxious, nervous, whatever those feelings are, they are okay. Just providing them with extra love, hugs, snuggles, just getting that quality time with your child. This next one is so important, and it's taking care of yourself. Not only is your child affected by what happened, but you're affected as well. So recognizing that kids are looking to us for cues, we're modeling what healthy coping looks like, what healthy expression of emotions looks like. So saying something to your child like, "Mommy is feeling sad right now. I miss this person," or I'm really thinking about this person. Can I have a hug? That can be so helpful for kids. So, that's showing them this is how I'm feeling and this is how I'm coping with this feeling. And, a hug from a loved one is a great way to make me feel better when I feel sad, or a great way to reassure me when I feel sad. And just recognizing, calm is contagious, so is everything else, right? So kids are really just picking up on our cues. So making sure that we have the support that we need and we're able to express ourselves in a healthy way is really vital to our children to be able to grieve in a healthy way as well. All right, a couple more things here. Encouraging that expression of emotions. The tricky things about our preschool age children is they don't always have the words to express their feelings or the even that feelings vocabulary. So, thinking about creative ways that we can still help them do that. Just because they don't have the word for the feeling's still there, I assure you. So, helping them recognize what that is, taking cues from them, looking at their face or their body language and letting them know it seems like you're angry right now, or you seem really excited today. Whatever that feeling is, helping them label that. Using feelings visuals is really helpful. Kids are visual learners. You can do a simple Google search and find tons of free feelings visuals. And there's some that are real children faces, and there are some that are cartoon faces. But kids can pick up, they can see the different facial expressions and kind of pick up on that's how I'm feeling right now. So feelings visuals are really helpful. Encouraging kids to draw their feelings. Our preschool age children are usually super creative and are giving us lots and lots and lots of artwork that they have done. So just encouraging them to express those emotions and feelings on paper can be helpful. Continuing to acknowledge all feelings are okay, and really it's our job to help them learn how to express those feelings in a healthy manner. Anger, pounding Play-Doh, maybe using a stress ball or playing musical instruments. Those things can all really help with anger, with anxiety, having a safe place for them to spend some quiet time or playing calming music that can really help with some of those feelings of anxiety. And with anger, anxiety, frustration, disappointment, all of those pretty big feelings that can be hard for little kids to navigate. We know that when kids are kind of in that stress response system in their brain, they need to find a way to calm their bodies down. And deep breathing is a great way to do that. We definitely don't want to introduce that when kids are kind of activated in that stress. We want to introduce that when they're calm, content, when they're, um, in a frame of mind where we can discuss and they can learn and we can teach. So definitely recognizing that there's a lot of great ways. There's a lot of fun ways that you can teach belly breathing. There's a really cute video on YouTube called Elmo's belly breathing. There's a lot of other fun things out there. If you, again, you can do a quick search on deep breathing and find a lot of really fun resources. Another one of my favorite ones is, just a pinwheel that they have to blow on, and kind of teaching them to take that deep breath in their belly and blow it out and see how hard they can get that pinwheel to move. Those are all great ways to kind of teach that. And then also just reassuring them that they're safe. And we talked a little bit about this earlier, but we call this a safekeeper ritual, saying things like, this is a safe place. It's my job to keep you safe. It's your job to help keep it that way. Social emotional books are an amazing resource. There's a bunch of way more than this out there, but I just put some of my favorites on here. Tess's Tree is a book about um, this Tessa's favorite tree that dies, and how she goes through that grief process. And it's very magical thinking, but also recognizing that our preschoolers are magical thinkers, so that can be a helpful tool for children. The next book is not specific to grief and loss, but it's just about the feeling of sadness and how to cope with that in a healthy way. And it's actually there's a series of books, The Way I Feel, and there's a whole bunch of different feelings books. But I decided to include sadness because we all know that sadness really is a main or a really significant part when we're grieving, a significant feeling that we experience. Scaredy Squirrel, again, not specific to grief and loss, but it's a little bit about how Scaredy Squirrel can kind of navigate those anxious feelings. And I think we have to recognize that anxiety definitely comes with the territory here as well. The Invisible String is one of my all-time favorite social emotional books for children. And it's not specific to grief and loss, but it does touch on grief and loss a little bit. And it's actually also really good for kids that are maybe having some extra clinginess and some of that fear of separation and things. It talks about how we all have an invisible string that's attached to our loved ones, and it's no matter where we are. So, it talks a little bit about loved ones who live in other states, or, maybe mom or dad's at work, or, maybe my favorite aunt is in heaven, whatever, wherever they may be, if we're apart, there's that invisible string that's keeping us tied together. And the next two are a little bit more specific about grief and death and dying. Sad Isn't Bad is kind of a good grief guide to how kids can deal with loss. And then I Miss You is a first look at death. So kind of that first part of the conversation from earlier about how we can explain that in a way that kids can understand. Like I said, there's a whole bunch of other ones out there, but these are just some of my favorites that I've found to be helpful over the year. And then another question sometimes that people have is about funerals. What should my child attend a funeral or a memorial service? And I think we have to recognize there's really no perfect answer here. We should never force a child to do something that they don't want to do. But we should also recognize that funerals, memorials, celebrations of life are also a great time for loved ones to kind of all come together and grieve and be surrounded by, friends and family. And if our children are interested in attending funerals or memorial services, we really should encourage them to help with the planning or taking part in, whether that's, gluing pictures down to a poster board or just looking through photo albums or, helping fold a program or whatever it is so they can be part of that process. That can be really helpful with the grief process as well. And I think we have to recognize, I'm recording this in June of 2020. We have to recognize some of the restrictions that we've had with COVID-19 and how a lot of these opportunities are kind of diminished during this time, and how that might affect our child, and kind of realizing and recognizing that, and finding ways that we can memorialize or remember our loved ones without, if we're not able to have that process right now. Just a couple suggestions or a couple things. Again, you can find a lot of really good things if you do a search for kind of ways to remember my loved one or memorialize my loved one. One of my favorite activities to do with kids is to create a memory box. You can use an old shoebox or, whatever you have lying around, really, and let them decorate it as they wish. You can encourage them to decorate it in a way that reminds them of their loved one, and then let them fill it with items that kind of remind them of their loved one, whether it's letters they write to them or pictures they draw to them, whatever it may be. Maybe something of theirs. I've had kids that had an old keychain of grandma's, or whatever it is. That way they can take it out anytime that they want, and even just sit with you and look through things together. That's a really helpful tool to kind of remember. Pictures can go in that. Just talking about your loved one often, using their name, and just having a lot of really good conversation. Spending time looking at old pictures and things like that can be really helpful. You could consider something like a memorial garden or maybe planting a tree in their honor, something where you even have like that tangible place that you can go and maybe feel closer to them. And a lot of these things can really be um, individualized based on, your family and your loved one. So just thinking about that, that's an important step in the process and how you can kind of creatively do that in your own way. I did include my contact information on here. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Again, I work for the Children's Resource Center. We're based out of Bowling Green, Ohio, and I am an early childhood mental health consultant. And then I'm going to go to the next slide here. Here's some really good resources. I did pull some information for the slides from these, but as well, good resources of places that you can go to get some really good information that might be helpful for you during this time as well.